Another episode of Groovy Tuesday. I'll give you a few moments just to find us and come on in. We have a little visitor with us today. So how are we all doing? Here we all come. I can see people tuning in. So we're going to say good morning. Are we going to say good morning? Oh, what's this over here? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Groovy Tuesday with myself and lovely Jilly. The sound is great. So we have a little visitor with us this morning. She's here for the day to keep me company, make sure that we don't get into any trouble. So this is Gola. And yeah, she's going to be crafting with us today. No, not really. She's not very good at grid work. She's not bad at Groovy, but not so good at grid work. So yeah, so I thought we'd give her a little TV debut today. What do you think? You're going to say good morning? Good morning, everybody. And she's probably thinking, who is he talking to? I can't see anybody. Look, she's bored already. Look, she's yawning. That's the effect that I have on her. And it'll probably have the same effect on everybody at home. So yeah, I thought we'd just brighten up the day a little bit today, and little visitor, and just while everybody's coming in. So yes, good morning, good morning. So I'm going to hand her over to the lovely Jilly. Jilly's going to keep you occupied for the next hour while we do some crafting. Yes, there we go. So thank you very much, Jilly. There we go. Right there. How are we all doing today? Tuesday already. Quite mild down here in Kent today. It's grey and overcast, but it's quite mild. So short sleeve shirt again today. So yes, all of my little lonesome. No lovely Linda today. Linda's having a bit of a break. But I've seen some of the work you've been doing with the beautiful frosted floral overlays, and oh, absolutely beautiful. And I think it is one of those skills that you sort of build up to, isn't it? And at the end of the day, when you're doing the coloring technique, it's just a piece of parchment. And if you go wrong, if you're using the pencils, then you can erase it with the eraser pencil. So it really does have that flexibility to it. And then when you combine both looks from the frosted floral, from the frosted element and the color, it just goes ping. And I think, as Linda said at the beginning of the frosted floral February, then if your coloring's not so great or your white work's not so great, when you combine them together, any sort of little imperfections. I mean, we're our own worst critics, aren't we? So we always think, oh, maybe I should have gone so heavy on here, maybe not so heavy on there. And yeah, it's all about sort of just practicing. It's like anything. I mean, who thought back in the day that I'd be doing Groovi on TV or parchment craft? Absolutely crazy, considering I sort of started off die cutting, stamping, decoupage. I mean, my first love of crafting was decoupage, and then it just gradually sort of changed in different directions. So how are we all doing today? So I thought what we're going to do, we're going to go back to basics with some grid work. And I've always loved the effect of grid work on parchment craft. And in a traditional method, you've always had to sort of, it be a basic grid, and you've got to count and plot and perforate and emboss. And you make a mistake and you think, oh, now you've got to adapt your pattern. But the lovely Josie, the queen of the grid work, she just comes up trumps every single time. And she designed the Duet Grids. And we've got various different grids in the collection. So I thought to start off with, whilst we're just all getting together, we'll just have a little bit of a look at the different ones we've got. So this one here, this is Edward. So this is part of the King's collection. And you'll notice on each of the plates as we go through them, that one part is brighter white than the other. So this is where the traditional groovy element comes in. So this is the embossed part. And then this side is slightly lighter. And this is where they're drilled, and these are precision drilled, and they're designed that you can use them independent of one another, but you can, when combined together, you get that beautiful lacework. So we've got the kings, and I've just got one of each of the different collections. Then we have, what have we got? So then we've got the princesses. So Charlotte is one of them. I love this one. I mean, for me, just the embossing part really does the job, or just the perforating. Then what do we have after that? Then we have, this was a bit of a game changer. The palaces that included those beautiful photo corners. So if you wanted to, you could take just the corners and just put those on the card. You don't have to use the whole of the design. Okay. Then we have the Italian cities. Now, this was the first time where we sort of did like a horseshoe. Because of the way in which this has been designed, this is based on a diagonal grid. The design going across this way is different to the design that comes down here. So therefore, what we had to do was to create a horseshoe rather than just an L like the other ones. Then we had another game changer, which were the circular grids. Now, I really love working with these. And the way in which Josie designed these, you've got the larger circle, and then you've got the inner circle. So we have those as well. Then we went big. So we went with the princes, and this is Prince William. And you can see you've got a real sort of, when you look at the width of these borders, don't think, oh, it's a little bit too chunky, because you can pick and choose the elements of them. And because Josie's done all the work for us, what it means is that you can take the design exactly as it comes, just like we can with a normal Groovi plate. But because they give you the confidence, you can take just the elements of them for the decorative side of it. There we've also got the ribbon ones as well. So the way in which Josie designed these, that if you chose to, you can thread ribbon through each of the designs. Okay. The latest in the collection were the French cities. And again, these were based on a diagonal grid, hence why we have the horseshoe part, because you'll see this design here is different to the design there. It's the same, but different, if that sort of makes sense. Okay. And then you've got decorative elements in the middle. Now, I reached out to Josie and I said, look, we're going to look at some grids in Groovy Tuesday. We're going to make it nice and easy for people that are sort of maybe struggling. And we agreed that the Queens would be a really good place to start, especially Elizabeth. Okay. Because there's not much detail on them in relation to the thickness. If I compare it to some of the other designs, for example, if we have a look at the princess and we look at Charlotte, you can see, although they're the same sort of thickness, there's a lot more work to be done on this one here. Okay. So during the course of this month, I thought what we'll do is we'll go back to basics with the grid work and just show you how easy it is to achieve. And maybe if you're struggling because when you've got just a right angle and you've got to go turn it round, then turn it round, and then you get to the fourth one to line it up, and often it goes, oh, it's out by a fraction. And there are ways of sort of adjusting it, but hopefully over the course of this month, we'll show with ease how you can sort of maybe not. Well, I can't speak this morning. It's one of those days. We're going to work through it slowly at a nice steady pace. If you've got any questions, you can pop those up. Gilly will prompt me if I miss any. And I'm guessing Josie's probably in the room if she's recovered from her retreat at the weekend. We've got lots of the lovely design team members in the room as well. And over the course of March, really, on the Clarity Matters blog every Sunday, Josie has done a step-by-step tutorial using various different grids. So although I'm going to concentrate on Queen Elizabeth, if you have any of the other grids, the principle is the same. so you'll be able to adapt and work with us. Okay. There we go. I'm here, Paul. Thank you, Josie. I knew Josie would be there. So no pressure, is there, Paul? But you know what? There isn't any pressure. Because you've got the grids do all the work for you. So what do we need to get started? We'll give you a few minutes to get everything together. So you're going to take your plate of choice. If you've got Queen Elizabeth, brilliant. But if you haven't, then any of the Duet Grids will work just the same. Okay. Now you have choices. You can go with the plate mate that comes in the starter kit if you're going with one of the A5 squares. Or what I prefer to use when I'm using the grids is Josie's A5 square plate mate for grids. Okay, and the reason I like to use this one is because it's got all these lines around the outside, so it gives me that help with positioning the parchment. Okay, so we need a plate mate. I'm going to go big with A4 parchment, because I find it easier if I can start big and I get carried away, then I can trim that down to the size. So we're going to need some parchment. Definitely going to need some Groovi tabs. I'm going to be using the number 2 tool from the Groovi, number 1 and number 2. So the number 2 tool there, a tumble dry sheet, and a Groovi guard. So I think that's all we're going to need for this session. And we're just going to take it nice and easy. You can either groove along at the same time, or you can just watch. It's entirely up to you. And if you think, oh, maybe Gridwork's not for me, then maybe after watching this over the next couple of months, over the month, you may think, you know what, I want to give it a go. Okay. So we're all ready to rock and roll. Lovely Jilly's put in all the various different links up. So if you're looking for something, she'll be able to point you in the right direction. See, we've got the lovely Pat Hoskins in the room, Tina, Linda Walker, Sally Ann. Good morning, everybody. And I can see varying different weather conditions up and down the UK. Oh dear. What have we been up to? Oh yeah, we had TV on Friday. We was up there with Barb. A few technical issues, but you know what? It was to be expected. And then we had a Groovi show on Saturday. That was really nice to do. We took it back to basics. We started with the Groovi starter kit, just like we did with Groovi Tuesday earlier last year, where we took it back to the beginning, opened up the starter kit, worked with the butterfly plate, and created some beautiful pieces. So if you're tuning in for the first time as a result of watching Create and Craft on Saturday, welcome. Welcome to Groovi Tuesday. Jilly will pop a link up to all the previous Groovi Tuesday, or to our YouTube channel. Maybe you found us via Facebook, maybe you found us via the Pergamano website, maybe you found us via the Clarity website, or even YouTube. Every single episode of Groovi Tuesday and the Pergamano School with the lovely Linda Williams is all recorded. So it means you can go back and watch again and again and again. Also means you can fast forward through all the waffling and the introduction as well, if you really just want to get down and sort of have a go. So I think we must be ready to rock and roll. Now, what you'll find on, what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer on this one. So we can really sort of come, I've forgotten, so we want to go in. Let's see how close we want to come. I don't want to come in too close, but I think that's close enough to start with. Now, like with all Groovi plates, what we need to be able to do, for the embossing part, we need to be able to read the word Groovi. Okay, and if you run your finger across, you'll feel that you've got the grooves. The perforations are drilled through all the way through, but we're not even going to go there at this point. we're just going to be looking at the embossing element today. Okay. Now, also on the plate, just as a gentle reminder, it says emboss this side up. Let's see if I can come in on this one. It says, there we go, emboss this side up. So as long as you can read that correctly, and you can read Groovi the right way round, then you know the plate's in the right position. Okay. When we come to do the perforating, we turn the plate over and it says perforate this side up. Okay. Also, in all of the different plates, we also get instructions. The lovely Josie shows us how it's going to look when it's finished. Okay, just a little sampler part there. And when we turn it over, when we come to do the cutting, we've got a fantastic cutting guide as well. Okay, so, but we're not going to worry about that this week. Definitely not. Okay, so let's get started. Just in that the dog is running riot. Bless her. Okay. So I'm going to take my plate. I tend to work in the top left-hand corner. Depends what you feel more comfortable with. And what I'm going to do, just so that it doesn't move around, because it's key to keep the plate in the perfect position. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple of Groovi tabs and I'm going to hold my plate to the plate mate. Okay, so that's not going to go anywhere now. Next, I'm going to take my piece of parchment, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to move the plates out of the way, and I'm going to wipe the parchment all over on the mat. And this was a good tip from Barb. If you do it on your mat, then you're not going to get any residue from the tumble dry sheet on your plate mate, and therefore it means that the Groovi tabs will stick better. Okay, I'm also going to wipe both sides while we're doing this. Okay, so I don't forget, because what we're doing the embossing first, and then the we're going to do the perforating afterwards. Now we have choices. If you haven't got the plate mate for grids that comes with the lines, then you can if you choose, line your parchment up with the edge of the plate. Okay, but what I'm going to do, just to give us a little bit more space, I'm going to use the lines that come on the plate mate. Now I can decide how far in or where I want to position them. So I'm going to line that up just there. I'm just going to bring my head over a little bit so I can make sure that it's in the right position. And I reckon that's about there. We need some more Groovi tabs. Okay. And then I'm going to tape my parchment in place. Are we all okay with this? I'm sure we are. Okay. Now, what we learned from experience when we was working with the grid plates was, rather than spend the time embossing all the dots and going all the way around, and then when you join it up, it doesn't meet, you've wasted that time. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to create what we call registration marks. So it'd be a good idea if we work out exactly what size piece we're going to pop in the middle. So I've got some little pieces here. Okay, so let's have a look here. I've got one that says happy birthday. So if I look at it like that, so you could have your piece, it doesn't have to be your finished piece of artwork. It could just be a piece of artwork or a piece of card to represent the size in which you're going to work. So it's whether I go this way or whether I go that way. Now, at this point, it really sort of doesn't matter, because what we're going to do is create a rectangle. Okay, so therefore I know if I pop that there, really for this particular plate, the work has been done for me, because we've got the width and we also have the depth. But say, for example, I wanted to go for a smaller piece or a larger piece even. If I wanted to do a little square and a little piece, then what I would do is I would take my number 2 tool and I'd look to see where that corner is. And what I would do, I'm just pressing into those grooves just there. So I know I need to stop at that point. Okay, and then I would look at the same in the other side and do that here as well. So that would give me my sizing. Now another good trick to do is if you take a Groovi tab, you could put a Groovi tab or a piece of paper across so that you don't get carried away with the embossing. Okay, can we see that all right? Let's wonder if I come in on this camera here. There we go. So we can, if I bring that back this way, where am I going? Left a bit, right a bit. There we go. So we can see I've done that embossed row there, and I've done an embossed row here. So that would be my cutoff points for my design. So let's have a think about this. I reckon if we just keep this exactly the size that it is, then it means everybody at home doesn't need to worry about measuring out. Okay. Are we all okay? Do you have to let the Marilyn, hi Paul, do you have to let the tumble dryer sheets dry? I've just taken mine straight out of the packet. Mine are good to go. Depending on where you purchase them from, if they are a little bit moist, then you could just hang them up in the house and just let them air dry a little bit, just to take some of the moisture. Or if you've got a tumble dryer, just put them in the tumble dryer for 5 minutes. Okay, entirely up to you. So let's come back in on this camera. So we're going to keep it exactly the size of the plate, just to keep it nice and simple. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to, as I said, I'm not going to trace out every part of it. So I'm going to look at the end part and I'm just pushing in to those dots. Okay, and you can see instantly that they're going white. And what I'm also going to, I'm holding the tool at an angle as if I'm tracing out my design. Some people prefer to hold the tool more upright and give it a little wiggle, which you will get a whiter dot, but in the whole scheme of things, if you hold it all in the same position all the way around, nobody's actually going to come to you and say, oh, that's not white enough, because it will be. Okay, so what I'm going to do the end mark here, and I'm just going to push into the lines to create the inner frame. On all of the plates that we've created, we've also added additional straight lines on the inside and the outside. So this means that if you don't want to do any of the fancy picot cutting, you can still do all the embossing and the perforating, but not do any of the cutting. Okay. So we're just going to press in and go all the way along. Groovi guard. Use my Groovi guard to lean on. So is anybody else at home doing this, or are you just all watching? See, my voice starts to slow down. But you know what? I'm not having to count. I'm not having to worry about the pattern, because the lovely Josie has done it all for us. Okay. I mean, look how easy it is to create that. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down. I'm going to turn my plate round so my work comes to me. There we go. We're going to go over here. And we're going to repeat that same process. We're going to take the end line and then come along the bottom. Okay. Let the work come to you. Okay, rather than sort of turn your hand so it's a bit cat-handed, turn your work as you go along. Okay. Now, this particular plate, Queen Elizabeth, is really, really nice. It's very delicate, very, see, I mean, I just love these little areas here that you can use. You could incorporate this into any design that you already have. Because at the end of the day, the Groovi system, the beauty of the Groovi system is that you can pick and choose the various different elements if you choose to. Or you can just take the design and go with it. Okay, so we've created that inner section. Okay, next what I'm going to do, the little corner. See, I find this quite therapeutic, just pressing into those dots. Okay, I'm not worried about the solid lines. I'm just interested in getting the positioning of the plate. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a couple of these ones at random. So there we go. Maybe I'll do a couple of these coming down here as well. And all we're doing is we're saving time, but we're also using them as guide marks or registration marks. I'm going to turn it round. I'll do another one just here. And let's do this one just here. Okay. One more for it's no, you get carried away. You really do. Oh dear. Yeah. Okay, so that now, if I lift this off carefully from the plate, we can see if I turn this over now, it doesn't look anything, does it? But what we have done is we haven't wasted time going all the way into all that area and then bringing it round to me and it doesn't line up. Okay, so that's where we started. So now what we're going to do, this needs to be my corner. So I'm going to swing that round, and this is where the registration marks really come into play. Okay, so I can feel, especially if you do that row of dots along the bottom on the inner frame, what you'll find is it gives you a really good positioning for it to fall back into slots. You know, like when we're doing normal Groovi work and we go around and we do parts and then we go along and then it just slots back into place. Okay, so a couple of tips here. Make sure that it's relocated. Okay, and I can feel that that is in the right place. I'm going to take my Groovi tabs and I'm going to pop one down there and I'm going to pop one up here. Now this time I'm going to bring my little piece of artwork back into place. Okay, because that's going to sit just inside there. Because what you can easily do is forget that you're doing a rectangle, okay, and get carried away. So what I need to do is have a look at my piece of artwork and work out exactly where I need to stop. So if I pop that along there, okay, that is the same line as the line over the other side. Let me just bring that over that way. Let me bring it over. Yeah. So that is the same line as over there. Now, just to help me so that I don't get carried away, I'm going to take a piece of copy paper and position that on there as well. Okay. And I'm going to take some Groovi tabs and I'm just going to hold it in place. Let me just fold it in half. It doesn't need to be a big A4 piece. It just needs to act as my guide. So this is a really good tip, because if you're easily distracted, like I could be when I'm talking and doing this, then what can happen is that you do get carried away and then you've gone too far and your rectangle then becomes a different shape. So we're going to put that straight line in again, like we did before, just to continue. Where's my Groovi tab? Oh, it goes in my Groovi guard. So we just push in. And this really does save a lot of time. I know we've got to sort of go back in and infill the areas, but it's going to be a lot easier if you make a mistake that it hasn't taken that much time to recreate, if that makes sense. And let's put one of these in here. I'll put another one in here. And over a period of time, you'll get to know how, depending on the design, how much of the embossed bits you need to do for your positioning. Okay, let's put this corner in as well while we're here. It really is. Okay, so we've now got one side, two side, three side. Okay, I'm going to lift off my copy paper, and now we're going to lift off our design. So we're still working on the back of our parchment. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring in to this side. Okay, so we're going to reposition our parchment, and as I said before, it just slots, it relocates itself. So let's just go back on the overhead. I'm just going to, we're on the camera 3, aren't we? So my head definitely won't get in the way unless I decide to have a little snooze. So now that is going to go there. And then we'll get one of those Groovi tabs and we're going to bring that in just there. So now what we're going to do, we're going to join up the fourth side. So I'm positioned perfectly there. It's also positioned well along here. I know my pattern is in the right place because they're relocated in that area there. And down here, this one slots perfectly into that corner just there. Okay, so I'm going to turn my work around. Let's bring that up so that we can now complete all 4 sides. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay. So you're just going to go along. I don't know why, but when I'm doing this, I sort of count in my head, but I really don't need to do the counting because JC, as I say, and these are very addictive. Once you've achieved one, even if you just do the embossing part of it, just to actually complete a shape, whether it be a rectangle or a square, it really does give you the confidence. And then what we're going to do is just, I'm going to do this little corner here. Okay. And then we'll do a couple of these ones. And we'll do one down here. And the only reason I'm doing what, because I know that it meets perfectly, the only reason I'm doing this is that when we come to reposition it, once we're happy that all 4 sides meet, then it will just make it easier when we come to realign it to infill the rest of the area. Okay, so There we go. So we've got that there. So let's have a look. I mean, I know it has met because that cross point there is perfect. So let's have a look. We're going to remove our Groovi tabs. Take that off there. I've got so many Groovi tabs on the go. So just remember how many you've put on there. Okay, let's have a look. So now it looks a bit like one of those old computer games, you know, like the what was it, the Space Invaders, doesn't it? People of a certain age will hopefully remember the Space Invaders. That's what it reminds me of. And if I take my piece of artwork, look, fits in there perfectly. Okie doke. Anybody done that? Did I go a little bit too fast, or was it at the right pace? I think it's all about just showing with how easily it is to actually get it to join up. And Space Invaders were part, yeah, Hazel remembers. Pac-Man as well, yeah. I mean, they were state of the art back then. I think with the grids, I think a lot of people look at them and think, oh, I really can't achieve that. But you can. It's the same as parchment craft. A lot of people think that they can't do parchment craft because of the skill and the technique. But with this, with the Groovi system, it really does make it achievable. Okay, so what we can do now is we can go in and infill the rest of this area. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring the plates back into play. And because I've got those registration marks, as I put that down, I felt it slot into place. It's really, it was right, here we go, off we go. So now we're going to attach it back into place. I just think the plates just are so magical. They really are. It just, I don't know, that it just makes it really easy and achievable. And obviously the parchment's translucent, and we're just sticking with clear parchment on this occasion just to work through. But you could use colored parchment, you could use beautiful rainbow parchment to get a different effect, the designer parchment. You're only restricted by the size of your piece of parchment. And if you're new to the grids, then A4 is definitely the best place to start, because what it does is it allows you, if you get carried away, that what will happen is that you don't run out of space. And especially with some of the larger designs, for example, say like, let's have a look at the French cities. These are really sort of wide borders. So it is quite easy to run out of space, because if you look at the size of the plate and the pattern, that is the side of the A4 piece of parchment. Okay, so it really is, A4 is best. So what we're going to do now, if I come in on this camera, where are we going? Just over there, and we'll come back a little bit here. So what we're now going to do is just in our own time, go through and complete the design. Now, some of the designs have solid areas of the embossing, like this one here. So it depends at this stage now whether you want to do white work in these areas or just have them beautiful, crisp and white. So I think what we'll do is I'm going to do these as white work. So all I'm doing, I'm going to trace out very lightly with the number 2 tool, the same tool that we're using to do the embossing of the dots, to do the embossed lines as well. Okay. See, even my voice, it just really slows down. It's just, and while this is going on, I'm not thinking about anything else. I can hear the dust cart outside, and that's it. funny, isn't it? So there we go. So then you go along and you just trace out the design. So here's a question for you. Who has any of the Josie's Beautiful designs, and do you have a favorite? And I'll try and look up whilst I'm tracing out. Okay, nice, and it's just so easy. It really is. And even if you're not into your perforating just yet, you just like doing the embossing, the designs, the way in which Josie's designed them is that they just stand alone in their own right. Carol Baker's got all of them and she doesn't have a favorite. Nicole Louise Plate is definitely her favorite. Bonnie's just bought a load in the sale and only just started. Jane Telford, well, Jane, yes, that says it all, doesn't it? I've got all of I do, and I can't pick a favorite. I know. I think that the way in which Josie's designed them is that they all have favorite elements to them, I think, that you can pick and choose, that you think, oh, this will work nice for maybe a floral card, or this will work really well for maybe an image. But I think what's nice is that you can create a series of frames. So one day maybe you could just spend the day embossing the frames, and then another day you can go and do perforating of the frames, rather than do the whole thing in one go. And then what you could do is just pop them in a folder, and then you'll have a little collection of frames that you can go to. So when you create a piece of artwork, then you could have a look in your frame collection and see which frame suits it better, can't you? I often find that when I'm working with frames, once I've created my frame, I don't tend to go onto the panel in the middle. I'll always use a separate piece of parchment as a topper, because what I don't want to do is I've spent the time creating the frame and then I put a piece of artwork in the middle and I make a mistake or I ruin it. So, I mean, if I did do that, I could always put another piece on top. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I just sort of, it's removing that room for error, I find. We're going to turn that round. And it doesn't take long once you get into the swing of things. Okay, and then do you think about, apart from all the talking and the stopping and the starting, we can easily achieve this little frame with just doing the embossing within an hour. Obviously, I'm more familiar with the design and the technique and the positioning, so it may take you a couple of times to get it right. But hopefully, with what I've shown you today, it will help getting the positioning right to complete the rectangle or the square. Okay, we're almost done two sides. It really, and I chose Elizabeth because I thought well, obviously it's the Jubilee this year as well, isn't it? And I thought that was a good choice. So lift that off, remove it from there. So now I can turn that round. This is now going to slot. It does, look. It really, it's magical. There we go. We're going to hold that one in place there. And that one in place there. Groovy guard. Do the embossing of the pattern. And we just, and you go at your own pace. You really do. There's no rush. It's all about enjoying what you're doing. You see, in a minute, we're about to run out of the pattern, but it doesn't matter because when we turn it round, then the pattern will continue. See? So we'll come to a stop at that point. I tend to, well, do I go left to right or do I go right to left? I don't know. I've never really thought about embossing. I suppose because I don't have to think about the design, I just go along with it. So what else have we got coming up for you this week at Clarity Towers? Well, on Thursday, we've got the Shack with Barb again at 10 o'clock. Then on Friday, we've got our first moment of clarity at 3 o'clock on Facebook and YouTube Live. That's Barbara showcasing those beautiful montage and clean and tidy stamps that we launched. That Barbara launched on Friday last week. So when we're prepping for a TV show, we always do more than what's required in relation to demos. And Barb, in all the will in the world, she'll never ever. We work through the I keep saying we. It's not we. Excuse me. Barb will create all the demos, and then she puts them in a sequence. And she says, right, we'll do this one and this one. We'll do this in that hour and this in that hour. And she works through it, gets it all in her head, and blah blah blah. And time just disappears. I think even if we'd had like a 3-hour show, still wouldn't get through all the demos. Barbara always has plenty to keep going. So if you need to sort of jump in with a little bit here or jump in with a bit there. So she's got some beautiful demos to showcase in the Moment of Clarity on Friday, 3 p.m, Facebook Live and YouTube Live. And yeah, doing it from here. So just travel down the road from Crowborough to Edenbridge. Oh, sip of coffee. Give you a minute just to recap. So that's on Friday. Then Sunday, first Sunday of the month in March. Hours have changed from 2 to 4 until 3 to 5 because the ODS hours have changed. So it just gets moved up an hour. Oh, and when you see, I think Barb may give you a sneak peek on Thursday in the Shack of what's coming up on the Sunday show, the 2 hours. And then Monday, I'm on Crate & Craft at 7 a.m. and 12 p.m. with some really good offers on some of our beautiful fresh cut dies. And yeah, so if you're looking to top up your fresh cut die collection, then Monday may be the opportunity for you to do that. So we're just going to continue. I've done all that part there now. And then we're going to lift that up. I'm going to turn it round, reposition it again. There we go. That falls back into place. Yeah, I reckon that's about there. Bring that Groovi tab round. Yeah, it's working really well. So we've got this area here to finish off. So we'll do the embossed pattern first. Okay. Anyone got any questions? So we're trying to look up. I'm just getting engrossed in what I'm doing. So I'm just going to go around and just complete the design. But it really is, once you've got those registration marks in place, it really does make a difference with your work. because it just allows you to, well, it gives you less room for error, doesn't it? And hopefully today I've shown you how easy it is to achieve that. But you can see how it sort of starts to, see, I just love this, just the embossing. Really, really nice. And this will be a beautiful design without any perfect, and we've only used half of the plate. That's all we've done. I'm going to spin this around now because I like to go across the top. We've only used half of the design on the plate because the other half is perforating. And what we've done here with the embossing part, if you just wanted to do the perforating, it's exactly the same principle. You just perforate some of the holes first to create your registration marks. Create the size of it. Don't forget to keep bringing your topper piece into play to make sure, especially where you've got a longer part on the design, put that piece of copy paper over the top just so that you don't get carried away. I've done it myself. I'm thinking, right, I'm going to do this square, and you sort of create those registration marks of where you need to stop, but you're in the groove. And you get carried away, and then you go, and next thing you know, oh well, we've got to start again or adapt the design that we've been working with. And finally, we've got the final little bit of the corner to pop in there, and that lines back up there, and that goes just in there. And I reckon we have completed our little frame. Yes, and it meets perfectly, and my little topper fits in there just as it's meant to. See? Really happy with that. And it wasn't luck, it's only from what I've been watching Josie do and other members of the design team and watch Barbara do to get that, the registration marks, rather than do all of the design all the way around. And then you go around and you think, it doesn't meet, it's out of fraction. And yeah, we can put a butterfly on it as long as it's not too far. I mean, if you've got a big gap, then obviously it's got to be a big butterfly and it will look a bit strange, but maybe it's a new shape. Maybe it's a slanted rectangle. But yeah. Okay, so we've still got time. So what I thought we'd do now is we can have a look at this, and this is how it is. That's it, just embossed out. And you can see the difference in the whiteness of the embossing. So where I've pushed in with the number 2, and then I've traced lightly with the number 2 tool so I can do some white work. But if you're not into your pico cutting just yet, and you just want to think, right, okay, well, I like that. I want to do the perforating, but I also want to create a frame. So I can just cut it down with a craft knife or a ruler. So we're going to take our design, we're going to pop it back into place. Okay. So that we're going to hold that down. And what we're going to do now is, I know the outer frame is going to be perfect. Okay, let's bring that in. So the outer frame is larger than the design itself, but the inner part is smaller. So it's knowing where to stop. Okay, so let's do the outer part first. So I'm going to go with the number 1 tool. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to come down. And as I come down, before I get to the bottom, you know how Linda shows us when we're doing white work and we flick away? Okay, we flick away. So what we're going to do as we come down is we're going to flick away so that we don't create a sharp edge, and I'll show you that in a moment. So we're going to come along the top and then flick away. So if I take a black piece of card, and if I'm going to come in on the number 3. So if I take a black piece of card and pop it under there, can you see how it's not, I haven't come right to the point. I've flicked away, so it's slightly flicked. Yeah. And what that will do, when we come to join it up, we won't have like a solid overlap of the design. Now on the inside, I know I do need to stop before I get to the end. So I'm going to put that tool, the plate, Groovi guard, just there. Okay. And then I'm going to come down and flick again. Try it. Rather than, before you do it onto your piece of artwork, take a piece of scrap parchment and try the flick technique. Okay. And then we're going to do the same. I'm going to turn it around this way. And I'm going to put the Groovi guard there because I don't want to go any further than that. So now we've got the flick there, flick up, flick up, flick up. We've got the flick on all different parts. Then we're going to turn that round. And now we're going to line the design up. So that goes in. These will now slot in again more easily. So I'm going to bring it around this way so I can see. We're on the camera 3, so I haven't got to worry about the overhead. Position that so that that's in the right place. Yeah. Hold that down. Now this time we're going to start here and we're going to flick into the flick. Okay. I'm going to come round and flick into the flick. And then on this one, I just need to move that over slightly. Can't get that in position. Okay, I don't want to ruin it after all this. So that's there. Now I know I'm going to go further. So I'm going to come down and flick. Down and flick. Definitely stopping on the inside of there. Down and flick. Down and flick. And then all we're doing, we're just, you can see now, can't you, the flicking. Okay, and they don't have to all flick in the same place, just as long as you've got some flicks. Now we're going to come round. We're going to line this one up. Look, bring the pattern in so that it's in the right position. That's nice and comfortable just there. There we go, that's in place. Bring that down. Turn that around. Then we're going to come round and flick, round and flick. Round and flick, round and flick. Turn it around again. It's coming on the overhead. So all of a sudden you can see it starting to line up now, can't you? So then Groovi guards definitely for here. And flick. And this one, it's going to come all the way around, but I'm still going to flick. And this is where the magic happens. Fingers crossed, he says. Line it back up. That goes into position there. That's in line there. Just going to bring my head over a little bit. And that's about right, I think. That's lined up. That's lined up. Oh, hang on. Got too many Groovi stickers on the go. Right, line it up. And with the overhead. There we go. Swing that round. Let's because the parchment's catching on the edge of the mat. So at this point, if you wanted to, you could, because you know that your parchment's big enough now. So now what you can do is trim off some excess so it doesn't keep catching on the mat like my one is. That's going to go there. Come on, play nicely. Yeah, I reckon that's about it. And then round, 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 and round. And so now, excuse me, there we go. So we've now got our solid frame. It's a little bit patchy in places, but I'm not worried about that because I can reposition it and go back in and put more pressure on. The whole purpose was to get that beautiful frame lined up in the perfect position. So that was quite easy, wasn't it? Huge sigh of relief. No, I was confident because of the plates that Josie's designed. I was confident, and it was just trying to break it down and make it as easy to achieve as possible for people that do maybe struggle with the positioning. The plate mate for grids definitely makes a difference because you've got all these extra lines on there. So maybe that would help you if you're struggling with that. You can obviously use the outlines of the plates as well, but that was one of the reasons that Josie designed the plate mate. It was to assist with the positioning so that you always know that when you turn it round and you're lining it up, there will be a line on this grid somewhere on this plate mate where you can line up to make sure that your parchment is completely straight. Okay. So I hope you've enjoyed this hour. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and thank you for joining me again. So next week, we're going to jump onto the perforating. Okay. So if you've got any questions, Groovi Worldwide, Clarity Worldwide, then ask away. And we'll just say goodbye to the lovely Gola, because I can hear that she's been outside the door. Here she goes. Thank you, Julie. There we go. So she's come to say goodbye, and thank you for joining her as well today, haven't you? Yes. You've been a good girl. Not. So thank you for joining me, and Gola as well. Let's just swap around on this side. And yeah, I hope you've learned something. Don't forget, you can go back and watch on YouTube and Groovi Worldwide. Yes, you can, can't they? And I shall see you next week. I'll be in the room with you on Thursday with Barb. And yeah, I shall see you next Tuesday. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.